welcome to episode 6, where we will be continuing from what we did last time, which is taking phrases but now making sentences out of them. So, what do I mean by sentences in time? So, let me show you just a quick example of what we can do if we begin to think like this. Okay, so that's a very quick, short piece. So, how do I use zooming out when I'm doing this, and what is zooming out really? So, back when I was in college, many years ago, so I was not very good at rhythm. In fact, I hardly knew anything about rhythm, but I really wanted to get good at it. Um, well, the main motivating force was actually this band called Tool, which I listened to um, maybe in my second year of college, and something about what they were doing was very different for me. I had not heard music like that before, and on closer inspection, I found that what they were doing was something called alternate time signatures. It's quite commonplace nowadays, but it was definitely something very new for me. So, what were alternate time signatures? So, usually we're used to groups of 4, and we have also been doing groups of 4 so far. So, we have KDB, so KDB, that's 4. We have DBDB, that's 4. In fact, all the phrases we've done so far, all of them are 4. So, what was happening in Tool's music was that there were groups of 5, there were groups of 7, there were groups of 4 simultaneously with groups of 3. That's called a polyrhythm. So, a lot of this stuff I was not familiar with, and it was something that I got really interested in. So, I thought to try to do some of that, and it looks like yes, uh, other people have had this similar experiences as well. Wow. Yes, Tool does that to many people. So then what I did was I want to get better at this. So I thought, okay, how do I even go about this? So the first thing I tried was just trying to imitate the rhythms in Tool songs, and then I listened to a lot more of that genre of music. So very what many people would call technical, but honestly it's not that technical. So this process led me to finally one day say, no, I need to get this, well, just imitating won't help. I need to learn this in a really good way. So I searched online, and I found this book by someone called Raphael Reina. So he had written this book called, and it's an excellent book. It's called Applying Carnatic Rhythmical Techniques to Western Music. So firstly, I was very taken by the title. I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then it turns out he has done, he has researched a lot, and he has actually spent a lot of time in India learning Carnatic rhythm. So I thought, okay, let's give it a go. And I started reading that book, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. Such a foundational text for developing your rhythm. So I tried it out, but it turns out at the time I was not even competent enough to understand what was written in that book. So a few more years went by, and meanwhile I tried learning rhythm from other sources, and as my skill improved, um, I finally could come back to this book and really approach it in a way that I still do. I still use that book, and I'm still learning things. I have a long way to go, but having done this for so many years, it's been easily more than 5 years. So having done this for so long, now when I look back at where I started from, I realize I knew nothing about rhythm. And that need not stop me from getting better. And it is my sincere hope that with this channel and in any other way possible, I can help others avoid the mistakes I made, for one, and also just experience rhythm for the beautiful thing that it is. So, one thing that I really wanted to know was, when I say phrase and the phrases that been doing so far, how how do I begin to use them? How do I begin to make something out of them? Knowing a phrase, okay, KDD, fine, but how do I use KDD and DKB and um, CD? How do I combine them together in a way that is aesthetically pleasing, or at least, at the very least, something that I enjoy in terms of a pattern? For that, the very first thing that we need is to be able to hear these phrases or observe these phrases, even if it's not in music, observe them as phrases and see the bigger picture. So far, what we've been doing is something like this. So we've been taking a couple of phrases, we've been practicing those phrases, 4 event phrases, 3 event phrases, 2 event phrases, and even 1 event. And then we've just been practicing them without a key, so without knowing how long each thing is and trying to internalize that, the longness or the shortness, the length of it basically. And what if we had a bunch of events like this, right? What if we weren't even able to group them? So what if they were like this? So this seems like a mess to start with. I just see 2 long events there and a bunch of short events. What we have done so far is we've learned to group them like this. So the first one becomes KDD, the next one is a DBDB, then we have a DKB and DBDB again. So this is our sentence. And now we've learned to group it in this way. But how do we appreciate them put together, right? So far we've been using a metronome at each of these little time intervals. So if it's going, so we've been doing K, D, B, D, B, D, B, D, K, B, D, B, D, B. So we've had the metronome doing that for us to show us the length of each event. But what if we were to not use the metronome on each of those little time intervals? What if instead we were to use a metronome at a different tempo? That tempo being the start of every phrase only, nothing within. So within the tempo, the slower tempo that we have, what if we could put in phrases, instead of looking at long and short events only, look at phrases in their entirety? So then we'll just be having 4 clicks for this. So that would become K, D, B, D, B, D, B, D, K, B, D, B, D, B, K, D, B, D, B, D, B, D, K, B, D, B, D, B. Okay? Then what happens is we begin to view this as a sentence instead of a bunch of alphabets put together and we're not getting any meaning out of it, and especially at fast tempos it can become really hard to look at in such detail. So this is the abstraction that we develop. So if I were to play a metronome, let's say at this speed, okay, this is how it's been so far. So I can say K, D, B, D, B, D, B. So that's our metronome. But now, this is all we use. K, D, B, D, B, D, B, D, K, B, D, B, D, B, K, D, B, D, B, D, B, D, K, B, D, B, D, B. Alright? So earlier we had, and now we have. So you could say that the training wheels have been taken away. So now we just have to use this slower metronome and put phrases within. And once we do that, we will be in a better position to see the sentence as a whole, to see bigger patterns, to see bigger relationships. We do have to see the smaller relationships. We have to get comfortable with it, just like we learn to spell. But if we're able to look at the words of a sentence in relation to one another, another pattern emerges. So for that, this is what we do. So essentially what we're doing is we're using two tempos. One, to see the very minute details that make up our phrase. So just to know, okay, it's KDB. For that we have a KDB. So we use that tempo. And the other pattern that we're looking at is the bigger pattern. So we use K, D, B, D, B, D, B. And then we begin to be able to see the bigger patterns in time. So going back to the musical example I gave at the start. So if I have so I'm going to play this at the slow tempo and this at the faster tempo. So right? So this is slow, that's fast. And 4 of these fit in one of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I can put a bunch of notes in here to make a sort of progression. So I could do as the first one, I could do as the second one, third one, and that's the fourth. So if I were to join these together, it would be and what if I were to now put phrases into this? The phrases that we've done so far. And different phrases. right? So just by experimenting with a bunch of phrases, using two tempos and even overlaying them in this case, you can come up with um, a lot of stuff essentially. And this part of the process, the playing with these patterns, that is what will really give us insight into how to make sentences with time. This is just one example. You could do this even without harmony. You could do this even without notes. You could use anything, any event that is relevant to your domain, and it could work a lot. You could make some great things with this. So I would encourage you to play with this, and if there are any questions, now would be the time to ask them. You can always ask questions later. You can also join the Discord channel for Rhythm for All. The link is in the description below. And while I wait for questions, I shall just play a bit more of this. And if there are none, then that's it for today. Okay, we have a question. Wondering how it would sound if the metronome tempo was changed further, like slowed down more. So you mean slowed down overall, or slowed down in relation to the fast tempo that we have? For now, I shall take it that you mean slowed down in relation to the fast tempo. That's a really good question. So, what if instead of grouping every 4, so we take our slow tempo to be such that it groups every 4, but what if we have to slow it down even further so that it groups 8, so it groups 16? What then? Excellent question. So, this is part of the skill that we have to develop. We have to be able to change our tempo and overlay the different tempos that we can use as our perspective, so that we're able to look at bigger or smaller patterns. So if I have, let's say, for every 8, okay? So that's how that would be. So now there seem to be more events within the slower tempo. So it has a different effect, and we're able to see another pattern. It may be subtly different, but if I were to really bring out the 8 grouping, so what I would do is Okay, so I'm sorry about the very shrieky note in between. I actually pressed the MIDI keyboard, so it went okay twice. I thought there was a siren outside somewhere. Okay, so that's what grouping in that way would do. Suppose we could even group in very strange ways, things that we're not usually used to. So, what if I were to group every six with the same melody we had earlier? So, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We're used to it changing together, but what if I don't change it together? So, right? So the changes will happen at different times. So I'll play it slowly just so you can see it. So that's where that comes. So it happens at different times. So if you were to layer tempos like that, we'd have a kind of spiraling, kind of a very different effect. So that is how we even get to polyrhythms. One rhythm layered on top of another rhythm, or at least the illusion that there are two or more rhythms playing simultaneously. So long long answer short, you can and should try to change your tempo, vary your tempo, to observe different patterns coming out of essentially the same events. So you have long and short events, but depending on the perspective that you look at it from, you will be able to observe different patterns coming out of it. And that's what a lot of composers do in music, especially. You can have a phrase like, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What if I were to layer, that's 1 for every 6. What if I were to layer 1 for every 3? Now what if I were to layer every 2? So, okay, right? That would be a very different effect. And this can be used to create some very interesting patterns. I hope that answers your question. And seems like no further questions for now. So I will see you all next week. Oh, there is a question. Wow. Okay. As patterns get more intricate or have many concurrent components like a tool, what resolution do you feel or perceive the rhythm on when you play? Resolution, that's a really good word. Okay, so as patterns get more intricate, we have to be able to look at the same pattern through multiple tempos, and we have to be able to shift our tempo depending on the context. So let's say I have a pattern like this. So here's one hand snapping at one tempo, here's another snapping at another tempo. So this one is snapping 3, this one is snapping 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're layering two rhythms that really don't feel like they're, settling in very well, depending on, the tempos that they have. They seem like they're kind of cascading into each other and then meeting and again diverging and meeting again. So for this, I think of it as having three options of tempo. One is I think of this, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I can think of these as phrases, part of the phrases that start from this. So if my tempo were going, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one way. The other way I can do it is I can think of it in terms of the 4. So, okay? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's the other option where I took this as the rhythm. And if you noticed, when I was using this, I was putting 4 within each. When I was using this, I was putting 3 within each. That's because they are related in a 4 and 3 pattern. So together, you could even say that this is a very big pattern in 12. So why? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, to answer your question, the resolution that we need ultimately for this would be the 12. That's the base resolution. To be able to perceive the 3 or the 4, it depends on what tempo we choose on top of this, the group tempo, so to speak. So, if I have the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's one kind of a pattern. If I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that feels different. So we need to be able to change our tempo depending on what we want to perceive and what the composer of the pattern intends for us to perceive. And the base resolution then comes out from this. So especially in the case of polyrhythm, intricate patterns, even if they're not polyrhythms, I would say the base resolution that you want to look for is the kind of speed where every event in the pattern comes on a click, like I've said before. So if I have so I can just put a tuck, 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 that could be my speed. But if I instead have, then I need to change my tempo. So now it needs to be tuck, 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 so that each of these events comes on a click. Base resolution. For bigger and bigger patterns, yeah, you can decide how you want to perceive it. Do you want to perceive it using 3s, using 4s, using 5s? That's up to you. So I hope that answers your question. I was almost going to end this thinking that there are no questions, so I'm just going to wait for a minute longer. I guess there's some lag. So if there are any questions, I'm waiting. And as usual, I shall play something during this time. Actually, there's this great example of a 3-on-4 in a song by Tool. It's actually what, so what is the name of the song? I think it was Lateralis. There's a song called Lateralis. In that, there's this part where the drum goes at that speed around, and the vocals on top of that says hey, but in a way that becomes a 3 on 4. So hey, 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 something like that. So that piqued my interest the first time I heard it, but I did not understand what was happening. Uh, I think I think it wasn't until 3 years after listening to Lateralis that I finally understood. Oh, that was a 3 on 4. So okay, no more questions. All right, so see you next week, same time, 10 a.m. IST. Um, and we will be slowly now transitioning to better syllables for our phrases. So we will get into that very soon. All right, so see you, have a lovely week, and see you again here next time. This is Rhythm for All. I'm Anirudh Venkatesh, and I hope to see you. Bye bye.